All right, so now that we are done with the fabric, we'll have our lining. So for the lining, I'm going to also merge my lining. You can see I have my notches on the lining, so I will just sew at 0.5 up to the notch before we sew into the lining to the fabric. So I'm going to sew now at 0.5, exactly the same way I did before we sew our yoke for the fabric. So this is it, and I will sew to the notch point and I'll back stitch at that point. All right people, so we are done. So the next thing we will do now is to sew this to our yoke. So to sew it to the yoke, to the fabric, this is it, and this one comes in and lay on top. So it's supposed to lay on top and cover up this way. After sewing, that is what we are expected to have. So you keep it the way it should be after sewing. Now we'll come back to this point. I believe you are seeing what I'm doing, where we have our notch. So I'm going to separate this first, flip this way, pick up the notch and match it with the, open up the fabric and match the fabric with the notch, notch to notch. So this is my notch and this is the notch. So you have to actually work with the notches, okay? So I'm holding on, as you can see, and I'm going to secure with my pins. So at this point you actually need to work with your pins a lot, because your pins will actually help this to lay flat and nice for you. So I keep securing with my pins. So as you are pinning, make sure you don't step on your tool. Make sure you don't step on your tool. Okay, so I will pin up to this point, then I'll use my hands to direct the other. So you can see where I pinned only on one of them. So I'll drop my presser foot again and start to sew. So I'm sewing, as you can see, my notch. Okay, so I'm separating the other parts, laying, separating the both parts. This can actually be technical, but it's something you can do. So I placed my presser foot where I stopped my stitches the last time. So I'm following the already existing stitches. So as I'm sewing, I'll be checking on my tool to be sure I'm not stepping on my tool. So I'll back stitch. I will sew directly on the already existing line. So make sure you sew on the already existing line. Gently and slowly, checking on your tools. As you can see me check on my tool. Can you see? So I'm still checking on my tool to be sure. So make sure that, I forgot to let you know that the seam lines, you have to match up seam line to seam line. So as you are pinning, ensure you push in your pin on the seam line and make sure it comes out of the lining seam line. Of course, if you cut and sew accurately, everything matches up with for you without issues. So I'm checking on my line, my yoke, my mesh. Okay, I'm checking on it because it can actually behave funny. So I'm still checking on my tool. So So if you are able to pin, you can pin all through. That's if you wish, but I think I can control it. That is why I decide to stop at that point. So I'm going to stop exactly where I have my stitches, and I'll back stitch. All right, so I've sewn one part of it. I'm going to sew the other part of it now. So I'll just take off my pins first, so I'll be able to sew the other part, and then I'll also place my notches on the lining, on the fabric. In fact, I'm placing this time I'm placing notches all over. Okay, make sure you take off pins, and where you have your seam line, where you have bulky seam line, you can trim it off for ease of turning. So once I turn these parts, this is what I have. When I turn on this part, this is what I'm going to have on this part. So make sure you take off your pins. Can you see? So you can see the inside of the lining is neat. Of course, we are going to top stitch, but I want to sew all of them before I top stitch. Okay, so I'll sew this one, then we'll come over to top stitch. So you can see the lining is neat and the front is neat. So by the time we top stitch, everything goes in and lays perfectly. So coming over to this, all you do is this is now simple for us. You just lay it this way, pick up this, match it to notch to notch, and secure with your pin. Okay, so I'll turn again and start where my stitches. You can see where I stopped my stitches the last time. So I'm sewing now. Remember, I pinned only on one piece, so I'll just check to be sure I'm not stepping on any piece. So I'm going to sew from where I can see my stitches. So if you notice, you can see I've been sewing where I have my stitches already. So I will just sew in now. I'll back stitch and follow my already existing stitches. So you can see me pushing in. So coming over to the seam lines, very important. Open up your seam lines, push in your pin, open up, and make sure your seam line for lining and for fabric matches together before you sew. Okay, so I'm ensuring they are matching together. So I'll pin it so I'll be sure it's matching together, and I'll sew like that, pushing your yoke. Don't allow your yoke to be stepped on. If not, you will start off this work again. So I'm going to sew where my stitches stop, and I'll back stitch, and I'll place my notches like I did in the other one. So I'll quickly place my notches and I'll turn it around and show you what it looks like at the end of the day. All right, so this is what we have for front and this is what we have for back. So you can see everything is sitting appropriately. So to help it lay appropriately the more, I'm going to top stitch. So in top stitching, you can see me holding onto my yoke. Can you see I'm flipping all these seams to the lining? So I'll drop my presser foot very close. Top stitching, you sew very close, okay? So make sure it's only on your lining you are sewing, and make sure you have all your seams on the part of the lining as well. So I'm going to back stitch and I'm going to top stitch. So like I said, in sewing yoke lines like this, you don't need to rush. You take it easy and sew gently, nicely. So as I'm sewing, I'm raising up. So I'll sew till I get to the end. I'll top stitch till the end, spreading out everything, okay? So that is that for my top stitching, and I'm going to repeat the same thing for the other side as well, okay? So people, that is how we come to the end of this tutorial. So finally, I'm going to top stitch the other part, give it a good press so it relaxes nice and flat for me. I believe you learned a lot from this tutorial. So if you are new to this channel, please kindly subscribe, turn on your notification bell to receive videos like this every day. Like this video, share to family and friends, drop your comment on the comment section and your suggestions as well. Thank you for coming, and see you in the next one. Bye.